Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I will be hosting a number of members from my home state of California, a state where the population is so diverse and where the culture is so rich that is often described as a microcosm of America. Every language, every nationality, every ethnicity is represented in the Golden State. Mr. Speaker, a state that is the 12th largest economy in the world. California's economy is so big that its GDP rivals that of some full-blown industrialized nations, including Australia, Spain, Mexico, and South Korea. The economy in California is crucial to the national economy, and I am here tonight with my colleagues to speak against the government shutdown that has been manufactured and orchestrated by the House Republicans. A shutdown that is harming the national economy, a shutdown that is harming the California economy, and a shutdown that is harming the very communities that we represent. In my district, the 41st District, which represents Riverside, Moreno Valley, Paris, and the largest employer in my district, which is March Air Reserve Base, with 8,500 people working at the base in some capacity. When the shutdown hit, 500 of these workers were affected by the furloughs. While Congress passed legislation allowing these employees to go back to work, roughly 1,000 National Guardsmen at the base still will not be able to drill this month and will not receive pay. It is not just our service members who are hurt by this reckless shutdown. Low-income children in my district are suffering too. The Riverside County Office of Education receives federal funding through the Head Start program to provide childhood development services and promote school readiness for children under the age of 5. Because of this shutdown, the county is not able to draw down their grant money, jeopardizing these vital services for nearly 3,500 young children in my county. About an hour east of my district is Joshua Tree National Park, where 92 park employees were given furlough notices. When the shutdown happened, park rangers were forced to notify campers that they had to vacate the park within 48 hours. 7,000 people a day visit Joshua Tree National Park, and this shutdown is estimated to cost nearly $8,000 a day. But not just the park and its employees are going to suffer. Local businesses will suffer as well. A cafe next to the park normally has a line out the door. The other day, the manager reported the cafe made only $39. This is a small business, Mr. Speaker. We have to end this shutdown, not just for the furloughed public employees, but for small businesses like that cafe. I'm very pleased to be joined by several of my California colleagues. As the first one of my colleagues from Southern California I'd like to recognize, I'd like to introduce the distinguished member from California's, let me get my list of districts here. Well, let me just, here it is. The distinguished gentleman, Mr. Alan Lowenthal from the California's 47th District. He represents the cities of Long Beach, Garden Grove, and Cypress. He sits on the Foreign Affairs Committee and the Committee on Natural Resources. I'm happy to yield to the gentleman from California's 47th District.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman Takano. I request 5 minutes to speak. You know, our economy, as you pointed out, is being held hostage by the Speaker, Speaker Boehner, for his refusal to put forth a clean budget funding bill, what is called a continuing resolution, after we Democrats agreed to use his number. This is keeping us from really dealing with the real job of Congress also, and that is to create jobs, to grow the economy. What I'd like to do is to talk to you. I've been talking to people in my district to give some specific examples of some of the impact of this irresponsible shutdown and then also to talk about some of the personal experiences that people have called me and told me about. So, for example, in terms of one of my cities, the largest city in my district, the city of Long Beach, and also in my district, talk about the Small Business Association, SBA. SBA gives approximately in the congressional district, the 47th district, about $308,000 of loans per day. They have not given out one loan since the government was shut down. That is to small businesses in the California 47th congressional district. What about women and infant children, the WIC program? In Long Beach alone, 25,000 women and children use WIC vouchers. That is to keep people from starving. That is to provide food. Those funding runs out this month. There is no other money to provide any funding for the WIC program. What about housing? 23,000 people in the city of Long Beach and 6,600 housing units receive Section 8 vouchers. They pay their rent once a month with these vouchers, and those apartments and those units get reimbursed by the government. There will be no payment to landlords in the city of Long Beach with Section 8 vouchers. But that's just kind of the overview. What about some of the specifics? Over 20 years ago, a dear friend of mine opened a card shop right near our house in part of the revitalization. I don't want to mention his name, but he opens this shop in the city, works very well, part of the revitalization. About a year and a half ago, he hurts his leg, goes to the hospital, finds out that he has, unfortunately, ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease. This past December, he loses his business because he can no longer operate, and today he lies in his living room almost totally paralyzed and barely able to breathe on oxygen. His partner of 24 years, he and his partner adopted a child 19 years ago, and who is now 19. His partner is a member of the department, is employed by the Department of Defense. He was furloughed. So my dear friend and his partner do not know how they're going to pay their mortgage as he lies in his living room gasping for air. This is not the America that we know. I have another constituent who told me that he, for 2 years, he's a young lieutenant in a local police agency, local law enforcement agency. After 2 years of applying and going through all the applications to enter the Federal Bureau of Investigations, 11-week training program here in Washington with 211 of the most selected and highly chosen people throughout 48 states and 24 nations arrived last Monday, and Tuesday they closed down the FBI training facility. All the instructors were furloughed. He will lose his opportunity, the one opportunity to move forward that he had, because we and the Speaker will not bring up, this Congress cannot act and the Speaker will not bring up a clean funding bill. And I'll close by just talking about one other email that I received. I'm currently an exempt federal employee working but not being paid. I will be defaulting on my mortgage, unable to pay several obligations. However, stay strong in your resolve. Do not succumb to extortion. We, the people, are suffering. Your colleagues are clueless and apparently heartless as well. Please remind them who they work for. We, the people. I am a civil servant. So are congressmen and congresswomen. It is time for a wake-up call in the Capitol. Thank you, and I yield back my time.
Thank you, Mr. Lowenthal. I appreciate it. I know you have to run on to a committee, and good luck.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to yield some time to a great leader in the environment, somebody who in the California legislature authored some landmark bills that have improved the environment. And he's also he is among one of the most progressive members of this body. I sit with him in the Progressive Caucus. Representative Jared Huffman of California's 2nd District, which includes the cities of Crescent City, Fort Bragg, San Rafael, and other cities. He sits on the Budget Committee as well as the Committee on Natural Resources. I'm happy to yield to my friend and colleague, the gentleman from California's 2nd District, Mr. Huffman.
Thank you. I want to thank my friend from inland Southern California very much for including me in this special order hour. There are so many ways in which this Republican government shutdown is hurting the people of California, hurting the people of my district. But I just wanted to speak for a few minutes about some very particular ways in my district that people are feeling the pain. The 2nd District of California is an amazing place. I'm honored to represent it. And one of the things that makes it special are the abundant public lands. We have protected coasts, parks, recreation areas, forests, wilderness areas. These public lands are essential to our region's tourism, recreation, and resource economy. The North Coast tourism economy is a big deal. It creates $3.5 billion in annual tourism spending, more than 42,000 jobs, and nearly $225 million in local and state tax revenue. Visitors from all over America, and in fact all over the world, come to our public lands, and thanks to the Republican shutdown, much of that economic activity is grinding to a halt. The Point Reyes National Seashore is closed. In 2011, this seashore received 2.1 million visitors and brought in $93.3 million in economic activity to the area. The shutdown is starting to impact small business owners in and around the park and West Marin. These are folks who subsist on the tourism dollars that this world-famous seashore and working landscape attracts. Nearby, the Golden Gate National Recreation Area is also closed. That collection of lands welcomes 14.5 million visitors a year. The spending on an annual basis is nearly $300 million for the region because of that visitation. The commissaries and vendors right now are shut down. They aren't purchasing the locally sourced food that they serve. And they're further hurting the Marin and Sonoma County farms and dairies because of that shutdown. Tourism is one of the most important drivers of Mendocino County's economy, further to the north. It pumps in $314 million directly to that county's economy, and that was in the year 2011. 74% of the visitors to the county come to the public lands, lands that are now closed. And what about California's Redwood Coast, further north in Humboldt County? You guessed it, Redwood National Park is being forced to turn away visitors. And yet, in response to the shutdown, this House has spent the last week voting on Band-Aid bills that attempt to pit one part of government or one program against all the others. This is a surreal proposition. The idea that our economy is hemorrhaging more than $300 million a day because of this political stunt. And our GOP majority offers these Band-Aid bills that aren't going to end it. The Senate is not going to take up and approve these bills, and the President has made it clear that he would veto them even if they did. So this is not going to solve the problem, but that, unfortunately, is how we've been spending our time. Now, these are not honest attempts to restore funding for our public lands. They wouldn't begin to undo the damage that this shutdown is doing to our resources and our recreational industries. The House majority is pursuing a cynical PR strategy. It's creating Hollywood storefronts rather than seriously trying to reopen our government. And even if these piecemeal bills were to pass, let's not pretend that it would solve the problem. So to give you just one example, one of the Band-Aid bills that we debated and voted on over the last week pretended to reopen our parks. And yet, it would not reopen. It completely ignores, in fact, the 2.4 million acres of National Forest Service land. And there are many other examples of park and recreation areas and public lands that would have been left behind and still subject to the government shutdown. In my congressional district, we have major Forest Service lands and a Forest Service presence. Many people and businesses rely on our national forests being open for business. And just this week, I got word that a salvage logging operation in the Shasta Trinity National Forest is at risk of being shut down because of where we are with this Republican government shutdown. This is a salvage logging operation in the wake of a serious fire that we've seen. It is a consensus project to harvest trees, to avoid public hazards, to do something that's good for the forest, good for the local economy, and it is at risk of not happening because of this political stunt. This is causing real economic damage and potentially real fire safety damage to the communities that I represent. So let's stop posturing. Let's stop the PR stunts. Let's stop the Hollywood storefronts. Stop deflecting. Stop insulting the intelligence of the American people. Let's have an up or down vote to reopen our public lands and indeed to reopen our government. I thank you and yield back to my friend Congressman Takano.
Thank you, Mr. Huffman. If you want to care to stay just a few moments to have a little back and forth.
I would.
We come from different parts of our great state of California, and I know we both share a deep love for our state. And I've been to your district, and to Sonoma and the great forest that you have in your district. And it's a terrible thing to see, just as California is coming out of this recession.
Right.
I don't know about you, but I visited a number of these businesses and during the congressional break, during the work period, during August and early September. And there were so many hopeful stories about people saying, we've gotten through this hump. We've gotten through the worst of the 2008, 2009, 2010 recession. There was even talk that real estate in my area of the state, which was hit hard, was coming back. And I told all these folks, I'm so glad to hear these wonderful stories. I just hope that we don't, in Washington, end up through any unnecessary actions, irresponsible and reckless actions, set back the gains that we have made. I don't know about you, but in my district, certainly I can see how shutting down the government and threatening to not raise the debt ceiling would have just tremendous adverse consequences on the 12th largest economy in the world.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, and I think you're exactly right. Of course, prior to my election to Congress, I spent 6 years in the California legislature where we had our own fiscal crises, and yes, at times the government practically shut down. We worked through it. We found compromise, and you are absolutely right, Congressman. California is on the verge of a tremendous comeback. Jobs are coming in. Investment is coming into our state. Things are really beginning to happen in a great way in the state of California after a tough period. And just as it seems we're getting started, along comes this federal government shutdown with so many impacts to our economy. And the debates that we have here in Washington don't even scratch the surface of how this is hurting people and undermining consumer confidence and setting us back in places like California, where we have the potential to do enormous things in terms of research and so many other ways we contribute to the national economy.
Well, thank you so much for coming down to speak about how this shutdown, this GOP-imposed shutdown, manufactured shutdown, and how this threat to not raise the debt limit is jeopardizing, truly, one of the great, our entire nation. But we in California are a tremendous engine behind the whole big picture of the economic might of our country. An economy which represents 12% of the global economy is nothing to be cavalier about.
Absolutely, and as we talk about this incredible economic damage and risk that politicians are taking with our economy, what I'm hearing from my district is how incredulous people are because there's such an obvious and simple solution and a way forward. Let's have an up or down vote on whether we should continue this government shutdown or end it, and even end it at least temporarily, on Republican budget numbers. That seems so eminently reasonable and sensible. And in fact, it was the deal that one House struck and advanced out of that House with bipartisan action, and yet here we are in the House of Representatives with a small faction rejecting that deal, holding the entire country's economy potentially hostage for political reasons. It's just something my constituents can't understand.
Well, I thank the gentleman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to recognize a representative from a neighboring district, California's 35th district. I have known Congresswoman Gloria Negrete McLeod, gosh, more than 20 years when we began our careers as community college trustees. And it's such a great honor to serve alongside her and sit in this chamber sometimes when we're voting. She sits on the Committee on Agriculture and the Committee on Veterans Affairs, on which I also sit. We are both committed to the huge veterans population that we have in the Inland Empire, the region of California that we both represent. Inland Southern California. I now yield to the distinguished gentlelady from California's 35th District, Gloria Negrete McLeod.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, with each day that passes that the nation is in government shutdown, we put the very livelihood of Americans and the economy in uncertainty. Like the over 3,800 federal employees who live in the 35th Congressional District, these are all hard-working men and women in the federal government workforce. Like the constituent who wrote us asking why death benefits for veterans were not being paid out. Like the dairy owner that called this very morning, wanted to know why they had not received money that was owed to them from the federal government. These are just a few of the cases that are going on in my district. And while progress has been made in the nation's economic recovery from the greatest recession since the last depression, the federal government shutdown hampers that very recovery. The shutdown sends a bad message to the business community that government is unreliable. The 35th District's constituents are not being helped by the Small Business Administration because of the shutdown. The SBA is currently approving zero general small business, real estate, and equipment loans. This hurts the economic development of California's 35th Congressional District. Last year, the SBA approved almost $500,000 a day in small business, real estate, and equipment loans in my district. The money enabled job growth and benefited the community by spurring economic development in the region. This equates to more than $1 billion not currently being lent to small businesses across the country in 1 month. Businesses in my district, the state, and across the nation are losing money every day because of the government shutdown. We should be helping businesses grow and start up and grow. We should be doing everything we can to grow jobs and grow our economy. Congress should not be an impediment that slows prosperity in America. And without a solution to the federal government shutdown, low-income women and children will suffer without programs that Congress fought hard to secure. Federally funded programs like the Women, Infants, and Children's Program, commonly known as WIC, is at risk of having its funding diminish under a government shutdown. WIC provides nutritional education and healthy foods, enabling families to make lifelong healthy eating and lifestyle choices. In California alone, 1.5 million low-income women and children will be impacted should Congress not act to end this shutdown. This is a time when 27% of California's children are considered to be food insecure. Children lacking access to enough foods or nutritionally adequate food. Letting a government shutdown occur when children's nutrition is at risk is really irresponsible. Let us be part of the solution and end political gameship that hurts average Americans. Let us feed Americans' hungry children. Let us get businesses back to business and help America prosper. Thank you.
The gentlelady from California's 35th District, Gloria Negrete McLeod. Thank you so much. Now, I'd like to recognize or yield time to a true champion of small business. She sits on the Committee on Small Business as well as the Committee on Judiciary. Representative Judy Chu has long been a friend of mine. I've known her from various roles we've played in California in governance. She comes from she represents California's 27th District, which includes Pasadena, Rosemead, Monterey Park, and many other communities. I now yield to the gentlelady.
Thank you, Congressmember Takano. Last week, domestic violence shelters and rape crisis centers all across the country got a notice from the Federal Office of Justice Programs that as of last Friday, thanks to this Republican shutdown, they will not be able to draw down the funds they normally rely on and may have to stop operating. The shelters in my district showed me the notice, and it gave us all chills. They would be forced to shut their doors, leaving abused victims and children with nowhere else to turn. Just yesterday, I was in a judiciary hearing in which an advocate said that their agency had just seen a young girl that was beaten, tortured, and raped for 5 hours. If these centers are not open, where is a girl like this to go? As a former rape crisis counselor, I know firsthand the damage that domestic violence and sexual assault causes. We can't just leave these victims to fend for themselves, vulnerable to their abusers at the most critical times of their lives. And that is why agencies in my district like YWCA, Wings, Haven House, the San Gabriel Valley Center, Asian Women's Center, and House of Ruth exist to help victims get their lives together. This GOP shutdown is beyond shameful. It's disgusting. Enough already. It's time to end the shutdown. It's time to let us vote.
I thank the gentlelady. And now, Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend the remarks and include extraneous material on the subject of my special order.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And now I'd like to yield time to the very distinguished ranking member of the Committee on Financial Services. I've known Representative Maxine Waters also for a number of years, more than I care to even sort of count. She represents California's 43rd District, which includes South Los Angeles, Hawthorne, and Inglewood. The distinguished gentlelady.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Congressman Takano, for organizing this very special order, so that we can talk about what is happening with our state, our great state of California. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to once again call for an end to this unnecessary government shutdown and talk about the significant consequences it is having for the people of my district, California's 43rd. The recession hit the people of my district hard. Delinquencies, foreclosures, and job loss crippled our economy and our neighborhoods. 5 years later, we're just beginning to emerge from these hard times. But the irresponsibility of the Republican Party has threatened our fragile recovery. Their strategy, planned and financed by extremists like the Koch brothers, Heritage Action, and the Club for Growth, is to hold the American people and the economy hostage in order to push an extremist ideology. Their desire to eliminate the Affordable Care Act is misguided, wrong, and harmful to the American people. The Affordable Care Act is the law of the land. It has been validated by the re-election of President Obama and supported by the Supreme Court of the United States of America. It is settled law, and we should not be threatening American jobs and the American economy to repeal it. Mr. Speaker, Veterans in my district are being harmed by the shutdown. If this unnecessary stalemate does not end by November 1st, the Veteran Affairs Department will not be able to issue checks to more than 5 million beneficiaries. This is unacceptable. In addition, small businesses in my district are being severely harmed. The Small Business Administration's lending program has been stopped, and the process to obtain government contracts has also been halted. In 2012, Mr. Speaker, the SBA approved over $366 million in small businesses and real estate equipment loans every day in my district. I'm sorry, that is $366,000 in small businesses and real estate equipment loans every day in my district. Each day, this senseless shutdown continues. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in economic development all across my district is being undermined. In Torrance, Inglewood, Gardena, Hawthorne, Lawndale, and Los Angeles itself, retail stores, restaurants, and small businesses are hurting because of this shutdown. Prominent business groups in my district, such as the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce, the Torrance Chamber of Commerce, California Chamber of Commerce, California Manufacturers and Technology Association, and 14 other local chambers of commerce across the state have all said that the impacts of a shutdown could be harmful and disruptive to their businesses. The Republican Party likes to talk about how much they support small businesses, but when extremist billionaires like the Koch brothers start throwing their money around, Republicans tell small-time business owners, you're on your own. The Head Start program, which has put thousands of children on a solid path to a well-rounded education, has effectively closed services in many states and regions across the country. California is no exception. I'm outraged that our nation's children are suffering the consequences of these Republican games. The Republican sequester already cut 57,000 children from Head Start. This program is a crucial lifeline in my district, combating poverty and making our communities safer, better places to live. We need it restored today. And finally, I want to discuss the shutdown's serious impact on California's fledgling housing market. My district's housing market is finally finding its footing after years of instability. The Republican shutdown is throwing a massive wrench in that progress. A prolonged shutdown will cause tremendous harm to home buyers seeking to close on mortgage loans. These delays are detrimental to all home buyers, but particularly those who are buying for the first time. Mr. Speaker, tomorrow will mark the first paycheck many affected employees will miss as a result of the shutdown. These are hardships many in my district cannot afford. Each day, this senseless shutdown continues risk further irreparable damage to my district's economy, families, and businesses. It must end now. And just yesterday, we heard more bad news for our state. Governor Jerry Brown announced that he will soon be forced to make the difficult decision of whether the state will pay for the continued operation of federal programs used by millions of Californians. These include programs such as Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, subsidized school meals, and nutrition assistance for pregnant women and infants, all of which could be interrupted in November. So I urge my Republican colleagues to stop using the American people and the American economy as pawns in this debate. It's time for the Republican Party to end this ridiculous game and open up the government today. And I thank you, Congressman Takano, for organizing this very, very well put together special order. And I yield back any time that I may
I thank the
have.
gentlelady for participating. We both love our state with, you know, with our deeply, and it's such an honor to serve with you in this body.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. I now would like to yield some time to the distinguished gentleman who represents California's 29th district. He sits on the Committee on Natural Resources, the Committee on Oversight, and the Committee on the Budget. Representative Tony Cardenas was also formerly of the California State Legislature. His district includes the cities of Van Nuys, North Hollywood, and other areas of the San Fernando Valley. Representative Cardenas.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you very much, as my colleague has yielded me some time, and thank you for putting this opportunity together, Congressman Takano. It's a great opportunity to speak here today. I'd like to speak to what this is costing my district, and this is just a microcosm of what this Republican shutdown is costing all districts in America, all communities in the United States of America. Recently, some of my colleagues here in the House have chosen to harm America, harm American families, seniors, veterans, businesses across the country. They have refused to do their job of providing a budget for America, a budget which would simply pay our nation's bills. Ladies and gentlemen, this is something every family in America has to do. We must pass a reasonable budget. We must reopen our government. Every day we sit on the sidelines, American families and businesses are losing, they're suffering $300 million in economic loss every day. That's $300 million a day. Poof, gone. When I'm at home talking to the people I'm proud to represent, their number one concern is creating well-paying American jobs. This Republican shutdown demonstrates how out of touch the party is with the needs of working class families who are focused on feeding their families and making ends meet. This Republican shutdown hurts America. In my district alone, the shutdown has stalled the completion of a major project for the Mission City Community Network, a health network that provides medical, dental, and mental health services. Once construction is completed, eventually, they'll be able to help 10,000 patients a year going forward. However, this program is stalled because Republicans refuse to allow a vote on a budget. Congress needs to stop the fighting and should focus on growing our economy. The uncertainty about the long shutdown will last, how long the shutdown will last, is crippling our economy. The possibility of defaulting on America's bills is having a serious and negative impact on our position as the greatest country in the world. It's important for the government to provide stability and security for the people and businesses in our country, and the world is watching us. This shutdown has sent 800,000 Americans home, telling them don't go to work. For example, in my district, I have a federal building where hundreds of Americans work every single day serving my community. I went to that building just a few days ago, and it is closed down. The only person that I found working there now is one security guard. American families cannot afford to wait on Republicans who are holding the nation's economy hostage. For example, even children are affected. Head Start programs in my district are wondering how long they're going to be able to keep their doors open before they turn those children away. Now, every time we say that those 800,000 people are not going to work, those government workers, just ask the corner grocery store, the restaurants, how they feel this shutdown. It's affecting everybody, public and private businesses alike. I want to bring to your attention, it was just reported to me that the districts around Los Angeles, including the one that I represent, every day, the average amount of money that is lent through small businesses on every day, every single day, is $360,000 in loans a day from the Small Business Administration. That's more than $7.5 million per month. Last year in our district, more than $84 million in loans were approved. That's the equivalent of 2,400 new jobs last year. Well, now that's good government at work. However, now that the Republican shutdown is in full force and in place, $0 are being lent out through the SBA in my district. That means 0 new jobs every single day that the Republican shutdown is in place. I'm very, very proud to say that I grew up in a family where, to be honest with you, my mother and father made ends meet to raise us 11 American citizens, but I'm very proud that they raised us in a nice, clean, good environment. I have brothers and sisters who have gone to college to get their doctorate degrees, master's degrees, bachelor's degrees, and I'm very proud to say that with my engineering degree. I did that work for a while, but then I decided to strike on my own and run my own business. And I know what it's like when a business is trying to grow. And when you don't have access to capital, you don't grow. And if you don't grow, you don't create new jobs. I just wanted to make sure that people understand what it means when the federal SBA stops lending money. When they stop lending money, new jobs stop in communities throughout America. House Republicans must allow us to do the one thing Americans want more than anything else from our Congress, and that is to let us pay our bills, let us act responsibly, and let us put Americans back to work. It's simply that, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get back to work in this Congress. Let's get this government back to work. Let's reinvigorate an economy that was barely starting to get back on its feet, but yet it's been shut down. I yield back my time.
I thank the gentleman. Thank you so much. I now would like to yield some time to my friend and colleague, Representative Mike Honda. Mr. Honda, I don't remember what district you represent, the number?
The 17th.
District number 17?
It's the new one.
The new district. I know that you, Mr. Honda, have been a former school principal. You've been in local government as a county supervisor, I think, of Santa Clara County. And you've served in this body, I think, since 1996. It's an honor to serve with you, and I know we both love our great state of California, and we are very, very anxious and sad over the impacts, the potential impacts that both the government shutdown and this threat to not raise the debt ceiling will have on this fragile recovery that we are now, I think, beginning to see evidence of.
I want to thank you, my friend, for this opportunity and this dialogue. It's a shame that we don't have the same dialogue across the aisle, but our rules prohibit us from being able to create that dialogue and the debate in front of this country. So as a result, we have this moment in time we're able to share as members of California Delegation, but also as members of this Democratic caucus. And we're here today on day 10 of the Republican government shutdown that has cost over $3 billion in lost economic activity so far. And because of the compounding nature of the economic effects, it is estimated that over a month's time, the economy will be drained of $50 billion. Almost 1 million people should be working today, and they are not. When our government is forced to shut down, it hurts our economy, closes essential services for low-income families, and disrupts the lives of real people in all of our districts, regardless where we represent. Important government services that benefit all of us are suspended. And in my district, I've heard that from young people who are furloughed, the young employees of NASA Ames facility, they're wondering how they're going to be able to make rent to stay in their homes or to make ends meet. The investigators that were working on finding the underlying causes of the Asiana crash and coming up with ways to make air travel safer, we sent home. I've also heard from those that are waiting to hear back on their Social Security benefits appeals. Because the appeals office is closed, they will not hear back on their cases until this shutdown is over, which means they have less means to make ends meet. There's no reason this should be happening. All of this pain is absolutely, completely unnecessary. We do have the bipartisan votes, however, to end this shutdown today if the Speaker would allow a clean vote. That might be the most frustrating part of all of this. Actually, it is the most frustrating part of all of this, that we have the votes here on both sides of the aisle if the Speaker allows us to vote. I'm not sure what it is that he's afraid of, but if he let that go and let us vote and let the people vote, then we may be able to reflect the desires and the reflections of what people are feeling in this country. Speaker Boehner and the Republican majority in the House refuse to do their job. And I think they really do believe they're doing their job. But I pray that they see and understand that there's real human suffering and economic suffering that comes as a direct result of these irresponsible political tactics, both on the government-wide shutdown and on the debt limit. For House Democrats, this is not a game. On the debt ceiling, the full faith and credit of the United States should never be in jeopardy. That's our position, and that's the position of economists and business leaders, and that should be the attitude of this Congress. Warren Buffett called the debt limit a nuclear bomb. Goldman Sachs CEO Lloyd Blankfein said the economic damage associated with default or near default will be severe and have serious consequences for the recovery of the U.S. and global economy. Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan said there is no debate that the seriousness of the U.S. not paying its debts is the most serious thing we have. The president of the American Bankers Association and former Republican governor of Oklahoma, Frank Keating, said a default would cost hundreds of billions of dollars, and even the slightest impact on interest rates would cascade throughout the economy. This government shutdown and the looming threat of an unprecedented government default are doing significant harm to our economy. The only ones that can't see that are Speaker Boehner and the Tea Party Republicans. House Democrats have started the process on forcing a vote on a clean CR to reopen the government, and will soon do the same with a vote on the debt limit. Americans want a vote. A reasonable majority in Congress want this vote. Speaker Boehner can call this vote today, but since he won't, we will try to force a vote as soon as House rules allow. Let's not go one more day without a functioning government. Let's stop these games, reopen the government, start the process of ending this manufactured crisis, lift this cloud from over our economy, and have the vote that Americans have been waiting for. Let us vote, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Honda. I know that you were, before you became a member of Congress, you had experience as a county supervisor. And I know that counties are often the fiscal agents for major programs like our nutrition programs, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, the Women with Infant Children nutrition programs. I understand that the stimulus funds that were supplementing some of these assistance programs, and let me try to translate this into ordinary everyday language. We're talking about food stamps. We're talking about people being able to buy food in order to just have the basic necessity of eating. And I don't know about your district, but in my district, I know that during the height of the recession, we saw people who were middle-class families for the first time having to access these programs. As I say, we're still not fully out of this recession. It's a fragile recovery. The other effect that these assistance programs had is that they serve as a kind of a stimulus to the local economy. People on these assistance programs have to spend the money locally at local supermarkets. It injects some stimulative effect on the local economies. My understanding is that come November 1st, we are going to see a significant reduction in those programs because we have not been attending to reauthorizing the legislation that funds these programs. We have a grave doubt as to what's going to happen to the 47 million people who rely on SNAP.
That's true, and Mr. Takano, as you know, I represent a majority of the area that's commonly called Silicon Valley, and we were doing relatively well. With the shutdown, however, government contracts, entrepreneurship is going to be affected, and that trickles down to throughout the system, including what we call the supply chains, where other companies throughout this country in other parts of the state are affected also. So this is almost like a arithmetic kind of an extension of this impact, when I guess Warren Buffett said it best, it's a nuclear bomb, because it just continues to spread its impact throughout our country and our economy.
Isn't that true? In Silicon Valley, let's kind of talk about that for a moment. There's been a resurgence of investment that we're seeing. Our California, our budget sort of recovering from additional revenues because your area of the state is helping to lead the recovery. This threat. There's two different subject matters here, the government shutdown and also this issue of the debt ceiling raise. We've seen on the Hong Kong markets the short-term debt or the premium that they're charging for this uncertainty about our debt ceiling raise. In other words, interest rates are likely to raise. Raising capital is going to become a problem. Do you have any thoughts on what that's going to be doing to our Silicon Valley entrepreneurs?
Well, it's a dampening effect. I think people are less likely to invest, even though there's a great faith in the kinds of activities we have in Silicon Valley. I think those who have the resources to make the investments, they're going to be looking at it twice before they can move forward, and I think that they're very concerned about the government's behavior in terms of how we manufacture crisis around the debt limit, how we manufacture crisis about the CR or the budget, and all we need is what we proposed a few months ago, and that is a good balanced budget that will drive this country forward economically and logically. No family functions without a good budget. And what we're doing is we've created a budgetary crisis that guarantees, and they've already done it, closure of the government or the dysfunction of a family. And when you do that, all hell breaks loose. And this is what's happening to our elders, our children, preschool. There's not a system that has not been affected. The military, our veterans, they're all being affected. And so we have to really make sure that the public understands what it is that's happening.
Well, I don't think we want to normalize or make routine a mode of governing where either party threatens to shut down the government because of a political end they want to achieve, or either party decides that they want to threaten the full faith and credit of the United States and threaten the status of the American dollar as the world reserve currency because they want to achieve some sort of political end. And it's certainly, we need to give the American people, every business, every family, investors, whether domestic or whether they're international investors who want to invest in our economy, including Silicon Valley, the certainty that we have a responsible a responsible government in the United States. Whoever would have thought we'd come to a place where within a year and a half, the last time that this issue came about was I remember seeing you on August 1 of 2011 when the Budget Control Act of 2011 was passed, but it was linked, I think, unfortunately, to the debt ceiling raise. And the idea that we would normalize this practice, to me, is something that we don't want to see our nation continue to do.
Yes, and I just want to close by thanking you for this opportunity. And we know that we're both educators.
Yes.
And educators know one thing: how to ask a question and come to a logical conclusion. And the logical conclusion right now is that we should have never been to this point. We should have never been to a point where we shut down this government. We should have done the right thing and make sure that the full faith and credit of our country, like our reputation, is honored. And so we need to get back to that point.
I thank the gentleman. And let me just go into my final remarks for this special order hour. And I want to remind the American people that the Democrats did offer a point of compromise when we accepted a funding for the continuing resolution, which is actually below the Paul Ryan budget figure. It's a number that the President agreed to, the Senate agreed to, and the House Democrats are willing to agree to. And we know that there was a deal that was brokered by the Speaker and the Senate Majority Leader related to this, and we thought that was going to be a clean CR being brought to, that the result would be a clean CR. But what we cannot afford to do, what I cannot unconscionably do as a representative for the 41st District, is to bargain away the Affordable Care Act. 24% of my population in Riverside County is uninsured. My constituents need the Affordable Care Act to help them get the quality health care that they deserve. The law includes important consumer protections that prevent insurance companies from denying coverage for people with pre-existing conditions. It eliminates annual and lifetime caps on care, and allows young people to stay on their parents' policies or their plans longer, their parents' plans longer. In addition, the law requires insurance plans to cover free preventative health services and lowers prescription drug costs for seniors by closing the Medicare Part D donut hole. So America, my community's seniors have a lot at stake. California State Marketplace Covered California has already received 1 million unique site visits. More than 16,000 applications have been completed and another 27,000 are partially completed. That's more than 43,000 Californians who've taken the step to get covered in just 10 days. Well, Mr. Speaker, this is all very simple. California has a handful of basic, excuse me, not California, but Congress has a handful of basic functions. Two of them are to keep the government open and to pay our bills on time. These things Congress should be doing already. The situation we're in reminds me of when my brothers and I thought our parents should pay us an allowance for making our beds. My parents argued that making our beds was something that my brothers and I should be doing anyway. That an everyday responsibility like making our beds wasn't something that was done for a payoff. What should I get for brushing my teeth? That's obviously a personal responsibility that I shouldn't get anything for. Refusing to fulfill a responsibility should not be leverage for getting something that you want. The House Republicans are expecting to get something out of this. They're expecting to get something out of refusing to fulfill their basic responsibilities. They're expecting to get something out of refusing to fund the government and refusing to be faithful stewards of the full faith and credit of the United States. They're willing to threaten the American dollar and its status as the world's reserve currency. There are several members of this body who do not believe the chaos that would be created by not paying our bills on time. One member said he believed it would, and I quote, bring stability to the markets, end quote. Others have said that it's, quote, a scare tactic, end quote, being used by the administration and Democrats. They say this despite every credible economist stating that America defaulting on its debts would be catastrophic. Imagine, Mr. Speaker, imagine if Democrats were this cavalier about an issue as serious as the debt ceiling. We would be run out of town, and for good reason. I thank my colleagues for joining me today. Let's end this shutdown. Let's end this shutdown, Mr. Speaker. Let's make sure we pay our bills and pay them on time.